Hi, and welcome to our series on local filmmakers. Today we're talking with Kris Langford, a Cambridge-based local filmmaker who has won very many awards. Kris, how are you today?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to come speak to us. Why don't you tell us how you got started into filmmaking?
So I originally started as an actor, primarily theater. Then I moved into obviously on-camera acting, and then a pandemic happened, and so there was no acting. At the time, me and one of my colleagues had an idea that we were batting around, which would later become our first short film, Heartache. So we took the time through basically the pandemic to sit down, write a screenplay, kind of put all the financing together, and basically we really just had no real idea how to do this. I had spent obviously time on sets as an actor, and we did a lot of like Google searching, and we had some contacts. Like my friend was a cinematographer, and I had acted in their productions before. So we just kind of like reached out to what we thought we needed,
Right.
and then we made a short film. That was the first start of that. So.
Yeah. And like making that change from actor to filmmaker, what did you find was the most challenging aspect of that?
So when you're an actor, you, other than like knowing your lines and your character, that's it. Like you show up, do what you're told, go home. When you're, and because we both like directed and produced, or primarily I was the director and producer, I had to handle both the creative side as the director, but also the logistics side as the producer. So there was no just like show up and go home. It was pre-production, actually development, pre-production, production, post, a film festival run, and all that type of stuff. So just the volume of work and the responsibility switches from like a very solitary, personal experience to a very macro collaborative requirement.
Right. And the name AVA Mac Productions, can you tell us more about how you got the name?
Yeah, so this is our production company.
Yeah.
It's pronounced AvaMac because it's based off of my business partner, Nuna Ferrara. His daughter's name's Ava, and my daughter's name's Mackenzie.
Right.
And so AvaMac became a company, and then a friend of ours is a graphic designer, so she designed our logo, and we were like, oh, that kind of works. That's groovy, and there we are.
And so you obviously named your company after your respective daughters. So where does family fall into your filmmaking style?
So when you need money, family is the first tree you tap. No. I'll actually get to why you do not take money from your family. I mean, family's super important. Like, film is collaborative. I don't prescribe particularly to the auteur theory of filmmaking. So family, friends, colleagues, everybody is kind of hopefully helping you out in some respect, even just like supporting you emotionally.
Yeah.
Like it's a lot of work. People put a lot of time and effort and again, money into their productions. And sometimes they just don't develop the way you want. And so sometimes it's nice to have people to be like, it's okay. Luckily you have other skills you can use because clearly this is not good for you. I'm clearly joking with that part. But,
Yes.
So in Unsolicited, my micro short, that was actually shot at my parents' house. Actually all the people in it are friends of mine. Only one of them's actually a trained actor. When we did Heartache, the primary actor is someone I knew from theater. We shot at Nuno's house, we shot at friends of our family's house. So like the locations, the people, very rarely, to be honest, is the financials. Most of the financials we've either gotten just from our own money or through arts grants and that type of stuff. So,
Unsolicited, I also heard that in addition to all the actors being your friends, everyone here is locally based.
Yeah. So the actors were local, the crew was local. For the most part, I think there might have been like a second AC from Mississauga or something like that. But like from the cinematographer right down through the cast to the locations, it's all like Cambridge or Kitchener-Waterloo area.
And why do you think that's so important for local filmmakers to kind of put a spotlight on their own communities?
Yeah, so I think first off, it's nice to not have to drive to Toronto.
Right.
Just the like location. But I mean, we have an arts community, and if artists don't see themselves on, like whether it's on screen or in the media, they tend to feel like they are the only ones. And I'm sure something that you've discovered in getting ready for this program is there's, even just film, there's a lot of like local filmmakers. Well, there's also a lot of local actors. There's crew that are commuting to the studios in Toronto or into Hamilton and stuff like that. So all of us getting to work together kind of helps raise all of us up at the same time.
Exactly.
And I'm a big fan of my community. It's like I'm from Cambridge. You know, I grew up in Kitchener and Cambridge. It's a beautiful community. It's got really good people. And the quality, there's already a lot of quality here, but the quality only gets better the more they get to work as well, right? So.
Right. And so speaking on that, Unsolicited had its run at the Grand River Film Festival. And so can you speak on explain a little bit more why local film festivals themselves are so important to a local community? So
like anything local, they tend to also have, I don't want to use the word bias, but like some caveats put in for, you know, sure, Grand River's a really good example because like, yes, they will take international films, they will take big Canadian productions with big budgets and stuff, but they also have a bit of a carve out for those local filmmakers. And so getting to see your work on a big screen, first off, it feels really nice. Like, as much as everybody's on their phone or their laptop, we all, like, you know, when you go into post-production, the expectation is it's going to be on a big screen, and you've done all this sound design, and you've, you know, color grading and stuff, and then all of a sudden it's like, you know what I mean? So getting to see your work there is great. They end up being really good networking experiences. So, and again, it shows both the audience and the artist that there's a community there. So the audience gets to see people they know and go, oh wow, like we're doing that kind of work here. That makes me kind of proud of my community. It allows the artist, the current artist, to be like able to showcase their work, but also up and coming artists. So if you're, and by like, not just young, but new filmmaker, and you go to a local film festival and you're like, wow, that was a pretty cool film. Wow, that was like made here in my community. Maybe I'm gonna reach out to these people, or maybe if I'm just doing my work kind of in the shadows, it lets me know that like I'm not alone and there is a place or a trajectory for me. The other thing too is, you know, film festivals, you know, you've got your prestigious ones like Sundance or TIFF and Cannes, but there is tiers to those festivals. And so sometimes getting into the smaller festivals allows you to get into like the next festival. And then you start to build a resume that shows that like, yeah, your stuff is continuously getting festival runs, and it builds your portfolio and it builds your resume, so.
Exactly, thank you. And so kind of going off of that again, how does filmmaking help the Waterloo region in general?
Well, filmmaking, you know, movie making, it's an art, like sculpting or painting. And I'm a big proponent of just like arts in general and arts in your community. And like, I think that having any art in like local art is good, just because I think art kind of feeds your soul. Like I know that's like kind of like a very philosophical statement, but like not all art needs to be high art, right? Like the National Ballet or the Canadian Opera Company. You know, having local art allows your community to express itself creatively. And again, film is just a genre of art, right? So I think art across the board, regardless of its medium, is important.
I think something that's unique to you, Kris, is that prior to, or like kind of concurrently to doing filmmaking, you also ran for city council as well. So I can.
That's one way to get your arts grants approved, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And so can you?
That's a joke. That's a joke.
I know. And so can you tell us, just on a political level, what you were planning to do to help the filmmaking community if you were elected?
Oh, okay. So I mean, Cambridge, again, specifically Cambridge, is often a location. So if you've seen The Handmaid's Tale, it's a very focused on the West Galt, Murdoch Mysteries. There's films that shoot there. As far as like, as a candidate, I was going to continue to develop our film office. So being someone who works in the film industry, I have a general idea and understanding of what producers specifically look for. So I think there would be places for like tax credits. This is something like outside of whether you're using the federal or Ontario Creates tax program. I know London has been really trying, like London, Ontario, has been really trying to bring more filmmaking to London, and they are putting in some very specific caveats for productions to come there, whether they are getting tax credits or upfront money and that type of stuff. So, I mean, for the filmmaking, I didn't actually campaign a lot on that. I campaigned on like social justice issues.
Yes.
I'm a left-wing, like working class candidate. But always in the back of my mind was to continue to develop Cambridge as both a shooting location, as well as just like you need to also generate like the crew. So this is something that the Northern Tax Credit did a really good job of doing, is that if you were hiring local people, you got over and above the already existing tax credits. Right. And so what that did is it create grips and gaffers and cinematographers and production assistants and craft services. I think they might have even canceled those now because they're like, we're good. We now have enough like Northern crew to service those projects. So.
And can you talk about some of the political undertones that you have in some of your films?
Sure. So if you watch really any of the stuff, including a lot of the stuff I produce, I tend to like regular looking people. If you see really, really pretty people in my films, that's usually a sign that they are bad. Or really, really wealthy people, that is usually a sign that they are bad. I use regular looking people, really working class stories, or just common, normal stories. Because I think that, first off, I think that working class representation in film has deteriorated at least since like the 1970s. The late 70s and early 80s seem to have a lot of like blue collar, specifically blue collar protagonists, which I feel like you don't see as often anymore. Again, also like the aesthetic, like that Hollywood aesthetic of everybody's really beautiful and trim and fit, and it's like, but that's just not the real world. And I think it's really important for all of us, whether you're from a marginalized community or not, to see ourselves represented in the stories that we're telling.
And in your mind, what's the most important aspect to storytelling and filmmaking?
The script.
The script?
Yeah, well, I mean, you got to have a good story, right?
Yes.
So the story is the genesis. But a good script, just competently, it doesn't even have to be competently shot, is going to be more entertaining, more engaging than a bad script with a $200 million budget and a fantastic cinematographer and a bunch of VFX, Marvel movies. You like, one is going to captivate you and one is just going to be like a sensory experience, and that's about as good as it's going to get.
Right. And in your mind, what makes a good story?
What makes a good story? Oh, that's a really interesting question. I think a good story, first off, is something that should resonate to many people on many levels. So, basic human condition, overcoming adversity, with emotional hooks in it, trials and tribulations, those types of things, because then it moves past gender or culture or race or any of those types of things. So a perfect example that I like to use is Brokeback Mountain. So one way you can look at Brokeback Mountain is like it's a film about the LGBTQ community. But if you really look at it, it's a story of like love and not unrequired, but like, or you have two people that are in love. It's almost Romeo and Juliet. They're not able to be together because of society. It's this beautifully shot portrait of these two individuals. So it doesn't matter what you identify as. It doesn't matter what your sexual orientation is. Any of those types of things. You can still see struggle. You can still see love. You can still see hate, because there's a whole component of like cultural hate on it. So that film works in whatever country you're in, whatever your background is, because that story is like it's like a basal, archetypical story of struggle and love, right?
Right.
So,
and just like speak on those universal themes, what are some of the other ones that you're trying to hit in some of the movies that you're trying to produce?
So right now, I mean, I do a lot with online dating as a device.
Like Unsolicited.
Unsolicited,
Yeah.
Heartache, the sequel that's currently in Festival Coffee. And the reason for that is, so I'm between 35 and 45. That's according to my acting range. And I am old enough and young enough to have seen the change from dating in a very organic way. You went somewhere, you met someone, you had an interaction, to it move to like online and then to app-based dating, and that those weird barriers that it puts and those weird nuances. But as well, I am also of the age where my friends who got married young are now leaving their partnerships or getting divorced, and they're being thrust into this world that is so different than what they left.
Right.
And so using that as a device, unsolicited, I think, is probably one of the best examples of it, because anybody who's done any online dating will, especially if you're, actually I shouldn't even say especially if you're, regardless of your gender or how you identify, because it is a very cliche, we take a very cliche thing that happens in online dating and we kind of turn it on its head a bit. And I like using it as a device because it is something that is very common right now.
Right. And like, this is totally theoretical, but where do you see the next evolution in app-based dating and just where it's going to take us in a storytelling level? Because like, there's movies like Her, with Joaquin Phoenix, and that's like almost a documentary now.
Yeah.
And so where do you think technology will take us on that level?
So look, I'm not a tech person, but that is actually a really good, I was, because even while you were talking, I was thinking like, well, it's going to be AI based, right? There's going to be some like, so real toy doll with AI, and it interact, oh my God, this is so creepy even just saying this. Like, you interact with the doll for a bit, and then it becomes your like perfect partner, I'm guessing. So like maybe even, what is it, like Demolition Man, where they just don't even have like fluid transfer, they don't even physically touch each other anymore. I don't know, maybe we're going that way. Or it goes the exact opposite way. Listen, I'm not an anthropologist, but I mean, it could go the exact opposite, where people push back against it, right? They push back against online dating, and they just start getting involved in like their lives, and they go back to organic dating because this didn't work, so let's try something else, right? So.
It's giving Dune vibes right now.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So we've talked about what you think is the most important part of storytelling, but what's your favorite part of storytelling and filmmaking?
What's my favorite part? Like, I mean, and this is like a cop-out answer. I do like all of it. I love when script and cinematography and editing and sound all come together. And again, like, if you watch my films, you'll notice like I love whether using actual contemporary music or something that has that vibe of contemporary music versus say like scoring, because I like that. My favorite movies are films that use music in a way that hooks you in. So like whether it's Drive by Nicholas Winding Refn, The Talented Mr. Ripley, I can't remember the director's name off the top of my head, but they use all this like contemporary 1950s, early 60s jazz and stuff like that. And so it just like, I mean, of course, Quentin Tarantino's use of music, it sucks you right in. Actually, Sofia Coppola's use of contemporary, like almost like punk rock in Marie Antoinette is a fantastic example of what I'm talking about right now. I actually think that is one of her best pieces of work, not lost in translation, just so everybody is aware. So music, if I had to pick, I would say the marriage between picture and contemporary music, to give you like just like a very specific answer. I love those two things. A beautifully framed, blocked shot with like the dopest like Ramones track playing over top of it, or Social Distortion or whatever, Depeche Mode.
That's a really good response. I think a lot of people are in the same camp as you, as am I. And so as we're winding down this interview, so Unsolicited, Heartache, and Coffee are on your repertoire right now. What other...
As writer-director, yeah.
Yes, writer-director. And what other films are you looking to make before you retire? Or what other goals do you have in this industry?
So I have a short film called Passage that I produced that's in festival right now. I have one called Man Walks Into a Bar, just finishing its festival run that I also produced. So those are already on my repertoire. Currently taking some courses through Sundance Collab on pilot writing and feature film writing. So we'll be moving into TV and feature film. We actually have a show that we're going to be pitching to Bell 5 with the cast of Unsolicited is coming back basically to do a TV show that is locally based. And then we have a bunch of like feature film projects that we're currently writing right now. Yeah.
You mentioned taking classes at Sundance. Did you have a formal education in filmmaking before making your films?
Oh, absolutely not.
Absolutely not?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I would say that digital filmmaking has really democratized film. Again, being on set is in itself a form of education. So, I mean, I would argue that there's kind of really three main paths. One, you go to film school. Two, you go work in the industry. Or three, you just go on YouTube, go on like My Film School, No Film School, those types of channels. Those types of channels, and that allow that to kind of like work your mojo. Or I guess the fourth way is the way I do it, which is I make films, I see what didn't work, I will work on other people's films, and then I do like continuing education courses as well. So I'm a big fan of actual formal education, especially when it comes to screenplay writing.
Yeah.
Because you can, we've been telling stories, you know, since human existence started, right? You know, cave paintings and dancing around the fire or whatever. And there is a certain structure that those stories started to take. And by learning that structure, I don't think it actually hinders you. I think it allows you to bring the story. You have this story inside of you, and it gives you, like, learning how to write a proper outline and how those beats, how those sections, how those scenes tie together and create a proper narrative arc, that gives the audience a really great experience, which means you're more likely to be telling the story you want to tell, and it will give you an opportunity to tell more stories because people will enjoy the stories you are telling. And screenplay writing, I think specifically, there's a lot of things, directing, even cinematography, and I'm not trying to like downgrade those, but you can kind of just learn that stuff. Like you learn that shot looks good, you learn how to, you know, move your cast around or whatever. But like screenplay writing, like there is a reason why screenplays get written the way they get written.
Right.
Right? So by learning that basic structure, it's sort of like any other art form as well. Like Michelangelo or Jackson Pollock or any of those people, like they didn't break the mold until they knew the mold. They were all classically trained artists, and then they were able to like move out of that space, right? Even Quentin Tarantino, like one of my favorite stories around this is everybody thinks Quentin Tarantino is just this dude, watched a lot of movies, great, now he's Quentin Tarantino. It's like, Quentin Tarantino lived in like Los Angeles, right? Or around the LA area. So he had access to all these like cool cats and stuff like that. But his screenplay for Reservoir Dogs went to Sundance lab program. He went to Sundance and took their lab program, which then also opened up a bunch of other doors for him. So it wasn't like he was just this film nerd. He actually had some formal education like overlaid over top of it. So.
Right. And so I think that's a great segue into my last question. What advice would you give to other local filmmakers that are just up and coming?
Okay, so if you want to make a film, first off, do not go borrow a bunch of money from people, like whether you're making a short or a feature, especially with features, because you can get out of money real fast. You do not want to put yourself in debt because the odds are you are not going to become rich and famous. You want to be rich and famous, go be a dentist, go be a plastic surgeon. You have a much cleaner line to those things. So financially, keep yourself like solvent. Never get outside of like your financial comfort zone because you're just going to be sad and it's going to suck and you're not going to have food. Food's kind of important sometimes. But when it comes to actual filmmaking, like really have good scripts. And that good script doesn't have to be like this big, grandiose thing, but just write a script, have some people read it, be okay with like revising that script because the tighter that script is, you can grab your iPhone. I mean, Sean Baker shot a fantastic film called Tangerine on the iPhone 10. And because they did that, first off, they had smaller camera setups, and they had a lot more money to get locations and to bring in bigger actors. And it's a beautiful film. Like I would highly recommend anybody who wants to get into filmmaking to go watch Tangerine. Because the other thing Sean Baker does is he uses a lot of non-actors in his films. So you get these, and he's also big on like working class people and normal looking people. You get this really authentic performance because you're asking like, a store clerk to just be a store clerk, right? Like there's no actual acting happening. It's just being. So have a good script. Don't go into debt, and watch lots of film. The amount of actors and filmmakers and stuff outside of the genre that you normally like just because you like genre like horror, like you need to go watch Schindler's List. You need to go watch, Gone with the Wind. You need to watch these things that the film nerds like. And if you're a film nerd, yeah, unfortunately, including myself, you got to go watch a Marvel movie. You got to go watch the genre or sci-fi stuff, because what you get to see is good film, good movies. They have similar structure. There are things that are happening in all of those genres that are universal. And you want to watch good film, and you need to ask yourself, why do I like this film? You need to watch bad film, and by bad film, make like things that maybe you don't like, and go, why don't I like this thing? Is it because it's just not my jam? Or are these characters underdeveloped? Is there no story arc? Like, is there no hero's journey? Like, they didn't start somewhere, they didn't end up somewhere. And the more you do this, the more you'll start to, again, see those commonalities between things, and it'll make your films better. And also be just okay with like going out, making film, and failing. Because like you made a film. You, first off, did not fail. You were able to get through this whole process, and you will learn. You will continue to learn, and just keep shooting film. And you better, the number one thing though, is you better like this industry if you want to do it as like a job. Because it will literally break your heart, and you will work insane hours, and the only people who are going to like respect you are a bunch of other nerds doing the same thing, crew members and stuff like that. So again, if you are trying to do this because you want to be the next Quentin Tarantino or Sofia Coppola, so you're not going to be. The odds are you are not going to be. I am not going to be. But if you're having fun, then it's all worth it.
Perfect. Thank you, Kris. This has been very educational. I'm sure lots of filmmakers are going to be listening to this interview and taking your advice to heart.
And listen, I know that's where you're trying to end your show. If you want more of that kind of information, if you tune into our podcast, the How'd You Like That Movie podcast, it's available on all streaming apps, including YouTube. We often talk about, we have filmmakers on, and we often talk about like, what is wrong with this film? Why don't we like it? And you'll get to hear me use a lot of real-time examples of the stuff I just said to you now.
Perfect. Thank you for the plug. And for CCDTV, I'm Bruce De La Cruz.
What was the last movie that you saw?
We're going back time for me. That was the Fantastic Beasts movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that
it
was so
before we
long
canceled
ago.
JK though.
Yeah.
It looks awesome.
What about you?
I'm just gonna grab my drink. Anybody need a top up?
No, I'm good,
I'm good.
So,
Oh my God.
what?
What?
Again. Like, I don't know. Every single guy sends one of these.
I mean,
I'm done.
it is a bit weird looking, but I probably still put it in my mouth.
I'm gonna need to see this.
Oh.
Seem bigger. It's not bad, but there's definitely bigger out there.
Yeah, give it to him.
U.S.
You wanted to see.